I know that you've all been prepared for this, but I thought I'd just remind you just the same.
Can you handle that, Blondie?
Game over, man. Game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
HOH. Pure evil.
I want to buy some radio ad time.
Welcome back for another episode. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Noel John Tui.
We got Carmack in the back, and this is Invasion of the Potty Snatchers. Let's get to it, motherfuckers. Alright, Noel. Yesterday we had that fucked up experience of From Beyond. Now we kind of go a bit more romantic, a bit more sophisticated, a bit more and racy. Interview with the vampire. And Noel, this motherfucker, this is your choice. And it was nice, actually. It was a big kind of like, because first we had Rosemary's Baby, was kind of very like suspenseful. Alice Sweet Alice was this kind of fucking pure mindfuck nearly like. And then we had From Beyond, which is a grotesque fucking extravaganza. Like,
absolutely,
and then,
yeah.
Interview with the Vampire is kind of like very classic horror.
Yeah.
Very gothic, you know what I mean? It's very colonial or something.
Very romanticised as well. It lends itself to a few genres, I really do think.
Anne Rice, who penned the book, actually wrote the screenplay as well.
Yeah.
So I haven't read the books, I assume, because, you know, they're
Haven't
very
read the
popular.
books either, but yeah.
I assume it's a very similar tone, you know what I mean? And the dialogue I thought was amazing, and the interactions between the main characters, like Louis, Lestat, and Claudia, and even later on in the movie, Louis and Armand, Brad Pitt and Antonio Banderas, and like I just love the interactions between them. The way the lines are very over the top, very dramatic. You know what I mean? Very like of the era. It's kind of like it's kind of like something you'd read in a play. You know what I mean? It kind of reads like a playbook or not a playbook. What's the word I'm looking for? What do you call like is a screen? Not a screenplay. What do you call a script for a play? Like when you're a playwright, what do you write? Just a script, is there?
Yeah, it's just a script.
But
yeah.
to me, it kind of feels like a play, like it belongs on the stage.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, it's like it's told from this. It's narrated in it as well, for starters. You know, let me take you to a time, and then the lights go black and they take the background out, put a new background in. Yeah, it does lend itself to that, definitely.
Yeah, because you can imagine like whoever's playing Louis to be standing up at the top of the stage, and as you said, it goes black, and he just kind of falls back into the curtains, and then all of a sudden it sets the stage again. Like, you know, should I tell you about what did he say? What book did he mention? He mentions a book. Should I tell you about this? Like a great book, or is it Tom Swift or Tom Sayers or so good? No, David Copperfield. Should I tell you a story like David Copperfield? How it began, my life, and the end, and death or something. And he goes, or should I begin at the beginning of my new life? My life of death or some shit like that, isn't it? Yeah. Where he talks about how he became a vampire, and that's where he picks up the story, because he speaks a little bit about how he lost his wife and child to the plague or something.
Or the Black Death or something.
Black Death was it, like so
the Black Plague.
Yeah, which was the plague. I don't know why you're correcting me with the same answer, you motherfucker.
I just tried to sound smart. I pulled it off and didn't fucking count for me.
With the Bionic PA.
I think you'll find it was the Bionic PA.
The Bionic PA. They took the derbs. It's okay, my girl. Take a look at your vagina. No, but like I love the way like it shows us that like straight away it shows us the fucking his lust for death, and death came and found him.
Yes,
you know what I mean. I think that's
he said I didn't care if it was the whore by my side or the pimp that followed him.
Yeah, exactly.
That followed her
because he just wanted to be reunited with his loved ones, because he's lost to melancholy.
Oh yeah, absolutely lost, and it seems Lestat kind of sensed it.
Yeah.
Was drawn to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like in The Strain. The Master is I don't know if you've seen the Strain series. Amazing. No. But the Master or vampires now, they're drawn to despair, and that's why he ends up in New York after 9/11, because of he's drawn to that despair. And then 9/11 occurred, and one of the most despairing things that ever happened in the fucking history of humanity, and especially modern history, and that like he was drawn to that. And maybe Lestat was the same. He's seen this guy who was just filled with despair.
We could read thoughts as well. I'd say there was like, though that would have been screaming at him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think he knew his story. Like that, he probably knew he was a person of wealth, a person of privilege. That person, if he could turn, he could use him greatly to his benefit. And like, so he used his lust for debt against him, in the sense that I'm going to give you a new life, but also you're going to provide me with a better standard of life. as well. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure Lestat was kind of living on the edges. He kind of seems like that kind of person that is able to travel and find circles but never really belongs to them. You know, that kind of way, like a serial killer. Like that's like a predator. He's able to go amongst, like, do you ever see those serial killers that can go in amongst high society and they're able to kill motherfuckers like without ever being known? They're like, oh, he was such a good this and this and this.
Yeah,
you know
charming,
what I mean?
intellectual.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
inviting.
Because like when Lestat goes into this place, to me, Lestat feels like a person that's masquerading as high society that comes from much lower background. That's what Lestat always gave to me, that his insecurity.
Lestat has the life that he decides he wants to have.
Yeah, but no, I think it's kind of like Talented Mr. Ripley, kind of like he's living a fake life, a life that he wants, but he never really belongs to. Kind of like what's that kind of like the guy that killed Versace? Didn't he kind of live in like high society and kind of those circles? David Cunanan, I think his name is. And
Buchanan, or I can't.
Or Anthony Cunanan, I think his name is. But like that kind of person that mingles in high society but never really belonged and hates them for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and even if they actually do make him feel belonged, he never feels like he belongs.
There's always that thing, now I have something you don't.
Yeah.
Like now I'm a predator. Now I feed on you. Like, you know, how much higher, like you were higher than me in society, now I'm higher than you on the fucking food chain.
Exactly. That's why he feeds in high society, I believe. Because he feels slighted. Like if I became a predator, what's the prey you're going to choose? Especially if your prey is human, is the one that you feel that slighted you the most, the ones that you believe in your mind.
Well, that's a classic thing, you know, serial killers, they ended up killing women that look like their mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever the thing is.
Exactly, you know what I mean? So that's why I think Lestat, I think comes from a lower, like I'm sure there's like anybody that listens to this, an Anne Rice fan, it's probably like, you fucking dumb motherfucker, this is his background, right? But I don't know this, but to me he screams like a person that is mingling with people that he actually despises. And the reason he despises them is because they ousted him at one stage or another in his long life. And I think that's why he feeds off the rich. Because maybe he feels like they rejected him at one stage and now he's turned him into prey. Look, as you said, it's like, you're higher side to me, I'm higher in the food chain than you.
Yeah,
you know
he had such disdain for them. And this is
want to be them as well.
But the cruelty. Like, there was like, obviously he feed on fresh blood. And human tastes the best, so he's obviously psychotic enough that, like, because, you know, there was the whole debate and he goes, but it is possible, he goes, anything's possible. But he had such disdain for them that the level of his cruelty was just,
he tied with them.
Yes, the New Orleans. I mean, she's here as Indra Nova was the woman who played her, but she's just New Orleans whore. That's what they said, guys. I didn't say that.
It's courtesan, we'll call her.
Yeah, courtesan. Yeah, but he when he's trying to tempt Louis into feeding.
Is that the girl that he eats the breast? No, that's the first girl. First girl, I will not take her life. That one.
Yeah. And puts her in a coffin and all that kind of jazz.
No, that's the another horror.
Oh yeah, no, the first
one. Damn it.
Yeah. Well, the first one. Remember, there was that lady with the dogs.
People, I'm using horror a lot.
But there was that woman with the dogs, and he's always going to take her.
Lady.
Yeah, the old lady who, and Iman had read her thoughts and realized that she had her paramour kill her husband, and had blamed it on a slave.
Yeah, and
so there you go, like,
and the slave was killed.
Like, could you imagine what they did to the slave? Is what he himself said, and even he, like, could you imagine?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think Lestat has that disdain for them because I think he feeds on like prostitutes and he feeds on women at like low risk, but he fucking loves to feed on the rich. Yeah, that's
because like a prostitute or something like that is someone you can literally invite into your home and will come willingly,
and that's why serial killers
and that'll feed you.
Yeah,
like that'll literally. In this case, it's not like feeding.
She's like takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all, and nothing
but
more.
But high society is fine dining.
Yeah, and that's where he hunts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of like, it's a difference than if you buy steak at a supermarket.
Yeah.
But if you go out and you fucking kill a deer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, absolutely. You know what I mean? There's the game to it.
Oh yeah, you know? and that was it. That was half the fun to him.
There's a reason why he starts with prostitutes with Louis. Because that's low risk, isn't it? Like, bring it to him.
They go missing all the time, and then they're not looked for very hard.
Yeah. It's not like back then we had like FBI's or some shit looking for people. Like,
no. We don't now, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We don't, like, you know. But it was introducing them to that world. I thought it was, again, the whole thing is very sexy and it's very gothic and it's very high English.
Yeah.
You know, they
it belongs on the stage.
It belongs on the stage, but also, like, that's why, you know, Kirsten Dunst, didn't she get an Oscar for this?
Yeah, definitely nominated anyway.
Yeah, I think she won. But But as I was saying to you earlier, like you were like, I think this was her acting. I think this is her best acting. Her acting kind of got worse as time went on. And I said, yeah, but there's something to be said for what you're given. This is a very, very intense role with some absolutely wonderful dialogue.
Yeah.
Like the arguments, Lestat argument with Louis and
no, I don't think she ever won an Oscar, dude.
No, okay, fair enough. She got nominated then.
No, it doesn't say.
No,
it just says her wins though. Right there, you keep talking, and I'll check out for them.
But but it was when people were arguing, because Lestat argues with Louis, Louis argues with Lestat, Claudia argues with Lestat, Claudia argues with Louis. The three of them argue amongst themselves, and there was always some absolutely wonderful dialogue. Tom Cruise.
She got nominated for Golden Globe.
Golden Globe. Tom Cruise absolutely chewing up the scenery. He was fantastic in this.
Real pantomime villain.
Yeah, absolutely. But
in the best possible way.
But he delivered his lines so well.
Yeah.
You know, he had great lines.
Yeah.
I just it was just so refreshing to see Tom Cruise as an actor.
Yeah, an actor.
You know, because now he's Mission Impossible and he's on all these kind of things. But like this was him as an actor. I
would say it's like his persona is more manicured now than it was back then.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. He was very raw. His energy was raw. His cruelty and he's spontaneous.
Like, look at Tom Cruise in like a movie like Interview with the Vampire. Look at him in Collateral. Like I think like two of his best roles of all time are both villainous roles.
Yeah,
and he doesn't get to do that enough.
No, he's an action hero.
It's really
he's John Reacher and he's Mission Impossible. Jack Reacher, and there's Mission Impossible 21 or whatever the fuck it is. Like, but I just thought he was my favorite thing about the entire film. He was so villainous, like he was so enjoyably villainous.
Yeah.
Like again, this was a very serious film, but it still had a slight campiness to it, you know,
because of the era.
Yeah.
And how it was perceived in the 90s as well, like. You know?
And how it was perceived in the 90s, exactly. Yeah, and again, it had a great storytelling device because Brad Pitt could just take you from the Victorian era into the rise of the steam engine and
the way he told the story is beautiful, though.
Beautiful,
and absolutely. It's like there was again. My long lost friend, my long lost blue. Do you remember when he's talking about that?
Yeah.
We started watching sunrises in the movie theater.
Yeah, Superman.
Yeah,
he was watching Christopher Reeves comes up and flies around the world.
Like, could you imagine that though? Like, because it said, I think he said it was 200 years since he'd seen The Color Blue or something like that. Like, and he's like, how I longed to see the blue waters of the Pacific. Or I had to get it trading for Blacks of Night or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about how, like, because, like, literally his whole world of, like, when he was probably thinking as a younger man, adventuring into the wild, venturing into the world, it's filled with colour and it's filled with all these different things. But by the time he gets there, he's already been turned as a vampire. So his whole world is the night. So, like, I think that's what kills him the most.
Of course,
the lack of colour.
You could even see, like, I thought, like, the vampirism and the romanticism and the kind of love that was in this film. Do you remember when Claudia gets out of her coffin because she's a vampire, climbs and tiptoes around the sunlight, and climbs into the coffin of Louis, and you were just, I thought that was such a great symbolism of like the darkness that they lived in, but the love they found for each other inside. Like it was such a good basis to tell a story from, because you get to go back through centuries. You get to jump ahead 50 years if that's what you feel like doing, and the actors were so good that you actually bought it.
Stupid place to leave a coffin if you're a vampire out a window.
Yeah.
With the curtains open. Makes no sense.
No sense at all.
You know what I mean?
Anything could happen.
It's like, oh, I love you, Claudia. I'm just going to position your coffin right here.
Yeah. I'm thinking bay window.
Yeah, bay window. I just might leave you on the roof. You know what I mean?
But
watch she sneezed during the night and knock the lid off.
Oh, absolutely. And you roll out. Yeah.
Anything can happen. Risk mitigation.
I thought it was that there was one thing that was truly funny is when Claudia makes herself a companion. Well, she has Louis do it, and that bitch is a vampire for like 8 minutes.
Like she doesn't even fully turn nearly. Like, it was pretty much she's in the throes of turning. It's like she's like, what's wrong with her? And he's like, she's dying. And she's like,
you did too, but you were too young to remember.
Yeah, exactly. Said it's only mortal death because she'll turn again. Like you know. But it's like she was like a vampire for a sneeze.
Yeah,
it's like it's you dead.
And son, it was.
I love the way Claudia kind of slowly poisons Louis against Lestat.
Yeah,
like I love that because she actually is very manipulative towards Louis. Actually, constantly on guard against Lestat and his influences, but he doesn't understand that the major negative influence in his life in a lot of ways is actually Claudia.
Yeah.
Because his life starts taking a downward spiral after they lose Lestat. Because if they were in
she's still 60 or 70 or 80 years old.
Yeah, at that stage.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's
30 years had passed, I think you said.
30 years.
30
so
years.
she's she keeps some of her childish nature, but she's locked in the body of a prepubescent girl.
Yeah.
But she is
actually, by the time she died, she probably was about 50 or 60, because I think 30 years had passed and they're still with Lestat. And after they left him, remember they said they travelled to all these different places.
Yeah.
So back in the day, to travel all those different places would take you fucking years, like, you know.
Yeah. The betrayal of Lestat was probably one of my favourite scenes. I mean, my favourite scene actually was the revenge of Louis, but the betrayal of Lestat, where
the pupil becoming the master.
Yeah, she goes, I brought you a present, Claudia, and she goes, is it? I hope it is a woman with endowments that you shall never have.
I love that.
That was a great. This is what I mean.
So
in terms of because everyone knows that you can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me. Game over, man, game over. It's just been revoked. Yeah. Everyone knows these lines, but I think there's so many of them in Into the Vampire that one didn't stand out. Yeah. There is just great line after great line after great
between
line.
The three main characters.
Absolutely fantastic. The actual arguments. Again with the New Orleans courtesan.
Is completely different in those as well.
Where he's arguing, he's begging Lestat to kill her. Because, it's not like she's not going to die, but he's not going to be a party to it. Yeah. And they're just treating her like she's not even there. And the arguments they're having, the dialogue is wonderful. Yeah, he just goes, it's a coffin. And then he lets her out and she was like, oh, she goes, it was a coffin. He goes, so it is. Yeah. You must be dead. You know what I mean? And he's just so vindictive and unnecessarily cruel for the sake of what he needs from her is her life. Yeah, but
when did he get turned? You know what I mean?
They never. All we know is that Armand is older.
Yeah, we probably find out in Queen of the Damned or something. I've never seen that movie, I don't think.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
The one with Alea, is that how you pronounce
it? Yeah.
Rest in peace. And
is that the same universe?
It's the same writer. That's because it's something we spoke about before we went on air. Is the subtitle for this is Vampire Chronicles, which I never knew it actually had a subtitle attached to it, which obviously comes from the Anne Rice book, a series, I assume. Yeah, and Queen of the Damned was set in the same universe because Lestat is in it as well. But he's played by Stuart Townsend, as far as I remember.
Right.
So I'm sure they probably, because I think that's a prequel. Because she's like a vampire queen or something. I think I might actually go and watch it just to know. But I assume maybe if it's a prequel that they give a bit more about his backstory and shit like that. But to me, it feels like he's been hunting and killing humans for a long time. He's so indifferent towards human life that to me it feels like he's been hunting them for probably a century, at the very least at this stage.
Yeah.
Because he's like a total shark in the water, you know what I mean? Like, humans are just food to him.
Oh yeah.
And it's just about the different ways that he obtains his food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's also again, how bored you become with things if you live long enough.
And that's why he probably loves someone like Louis, someone lost in despair.
Oh yeah.
Because he feels like a right companion for him.
And somebody can mold, because somebody who doesn't care what happens to them, you could introduce them to anything. They don't have an investment.
Yeah.
You could have he was trying to mold himself a companion. Probably saw a lot of himself in him. Yeah. Because maybe he was down and out by the time he got turned. He wasn't given a choice, as he keeps saying. I think it's the last line of the entire film.
Took him, didn't he?
Or no, Armand. See,
I'm going to give you the choice that I never had. That's
fine. Armand. He says to Armand. Louis says to Armand, "You knew Lestat." He goes, "I knew him well enough not to mourn his passing."
Yeah,
was the line. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually don't know. But God, it was a beautiful film. It was
because Armand's the oldest. He's 400 years old.
He's 400 years old, and he's never met a vampire older than himself. Yes. Which again, I want to know then, how did you become a vampire? Because it stands to reason that
someone turned him.
Because he didn't say that he's the progenitor. That he's
maybe he means I've yet to meet since then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that vampire I know is dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So I haven't met a vampire older.
Maybe he killed his sire.
Maybe so.
That's what we kind of hinted at. Once again, Anne Rice people are probably like, "I'm telling you, what happened with Armand?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're like, "Read that book, fuckheads."
I wouldn't even, like, if somebody told me to tell me what the film is about, again, you read the synopsis, it was a single line, it sums it up, but it doesn't do it justice.
Not even close.
Not even close. This film is such a wide, like, it's so immersive and it's such a wide landscape. It's so beautifully shot, and the care they took to make everything of its era.
Brad Pitt's such a good narrator.
Oh, he's
he
such
did
a
it in
good
Curious
narrator.
Case of Benjamin Button as well. He's such a good narrator. Listen to him all day. Like, he has this, I don't know, it's
Gravitas.
Yeah, it's like, exactly, just the presence.
Yeah.
Like, when he's in that room with Christian Slater, I love when Christian Slater goes, "Is this your home?" He goes, "No, it's just a room."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, because to Christian Slater, I think that was kind of maybe to emphasize, like, Christian Slater, this is an amazing moment, and to him it's just another thing. I just want to put my story on record. It's nothing to me. Like, you know what I mean?
Actually, I'm quite fond of crosses.
Yeah.
Just good lines, man, and just delivered
What
well.
does he say? The ravens of a drunken Irishman or something? Isn't it?
Yeah. But like, I don't
Hashtag Bram Stoker.
Hashtag Bram Stoker, yeah. But it's going back and revisiting it 20 years later. I don't know when the last time I watched this movie is. Probably 20 years.
Yeah, I watched it like last year because I did an article actually on some like the different. The article was pretty much different ways vampires are used in movies, and like I picked different kind of like 30 Days a Night is very animalistic, and you watch like a guy that used Fright Night with Colin Farrell. He's more like a neighborhood serial killer. You know, that kind of guy that lives next door, Jerry Dandridge, and he's very charming, like a Ted Bundy. Live next door to you all your life.
And he was like the whole, all of the, like Bram Stoker's Dracula was all of the cliches turns into Miss Bat.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
because he created, like, not even that he created a lot of those, but that was it in its in its adolescence, a lot of ways, the mythology of the vampire.
Yeah.
Because Bram Stoker wrote that such a long time ago. I mean, Anne Rice writes her books. Obviously, I'm not sure when she wrote her books, maybe in the 80s or 90s. Because this movie's in 94, so obviously before
November
that,
11th, 94.
You know what I mean? Like, so, the way I look at it is that the different iterations, like, so you have this kind of over the top version of Vlad Dracul in Bram Stoker's Dracula, played by Gary Oldman, this like real pantomime kind of thing, because that was the understanding of the lore at the time. And as the lore has evolved and as storytelling has evolved, you get this more modernized version of the vampire away from the campiness. And even though it's a movie about a story told in colonial America, a lot of it is, Anne Rice wrote it in a more contemporary time. And that's why she was like, you know, crosses. Why would a cross hurt a vampire? What if the vampire was Muslim? What would a Christian cross mean to him?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, anything that's lodged or attached to religious iconography makes no sense in the grander scheme of things.
Well, a lot of it was like written by somebody who was like, when it's written by somebody who's of the religion, it would be confirmation.
In Ireland of that time as well.
Yeah, it would have been confirmation of that as the one true religion.
Of course.
Because a cross actually rejects quantifiable evil.
Yeah.
But of course, you're absolutely right. It was like silly. But the one thing that, fuck you Twilight, the one thing that rang
Sparkles.
true was fucking sunlight.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's the one thing. Purification.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. It's the one thing I always thought it was so it needed
Only
to be.
thing that defeats the darkness is the light.
That's it, yeah. And it's so symbolic, it's so metaphorical, and it just, you couldn't take it away. It's the one truth.
The night is always darkest right before the dawn, or whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean, Jesus. It's,
what was that in? Shit. Game of Thrones, maybe, or Lord of the Rings. One of those two.
It was in a thing, but
It was definitely in a movie.
But what was your favorite scene from this? Because I will talk about my favorite scene.
My favorite scene. I'll steal your one.
I'll do it. Yeah.
No.
Well, if it was your favorite scene, you have to steal it.
No. My favorite scene, probably looking back through it, was the betrayal by Claudia and Lestat, because
she put something in. She killed the kids, and they were dead a while. But it keeps the blood warm.
Yeah, genius.
Genius.
Yeah,
but obviously,
he told her never to drink dead blood.
Yeah, I would have thought most. You know, dead blood is just disgusting to them, but dead blood is poisonous.
Yeah, no, because that makes sense. Because the need, if you don't have any sort of life within you, you need sustenance to be like literally. I think it's the warmth of the blood. I think it's because maybe you're cold-blooded, but it could be because you're cold-blooded and you need to heat up your circulatory system, for lack of a better term. Like, reptiles are cold-blooded, so they bask in heat, so they can warm up their body. Maybe it's a case of that. Like, it's like if you don't keep replenishing yourself, and if you replenish yourself in the wrong way, it's like completely toxic to you. Like, you know, because you're dead already. so you're staving off death.
Yeah,
really,
constantly.
Yeah,
I always thought, like, essentially you're buying in their life.
Yeah.
To continue your own,
which all depends on the universe too, because the people.
Oh yeah. If there's one thing that has been stretched out and twisted and turned around, there's nothing that can compare to vampires.
Oh, of course,
nothing.
Yeah, because
no superhero genre, no action.
So much lore around the world has their different interpretation of vampires.
And then it's the type, but Blade beside Interview with the Vampire. I mean, you could not be.
It's hard to believe that's about the same subgenre of monster.
Exactly, it's crazy to think. But this, like, again, everything about this was so beautiful and sexy. I thought an amazing scene was when the vampires were killing women on stage.
Yeah,
but everyone thought it was a part of a play.
And
one woman's like, "I'll be next. I adore you." And it's like, "You'll wait your turn."
Vampires pretending to be humans, pretending to be vampires.
That's a great line as well.
And remember Kirsten Dunst's Claudia, how avant-garde, because she's like a 50 or 60-year-old woman.
That's
or whatever
it. She's just caught in the body. Like,
actually, no, because the stat is dead at this stage, so she's probably like 50 or 60.
Yeah,
I assume there's about a 20-year gap between when they kill the stat and when they end up in Paris. Give or take. It seems like that, because back in whenever the 1700s or whenever this was made, like, or set, to travel to Egypt, to travel to Greece, to travel to Rome and all these places, that would take you fucking ages.
Yeah, you know of course.
And you probably spend time in all those places too, you know what I mean?
Months, literally months,
or years as well.
And you would have to make special preparations as well,
because you're traveling at night.
Yeah. But I mean, just looking back at it, just the scope of it, it's so hard to break down and compartmentalize, because again, it's based over centuries, and it's a story of time, it's a story of love, it's a story of betrayal, and then again, my favorite scene was when the one crime that you can't commit is that you can't kill your own kind.
Yeah.
So
that was brilliant.
Claudia and the woman she just turned, who had done nothing. So go figure. They were.
Yeah. Why did they kill her?
That's
guilt by association.
Guilt by association, or the fact that she was made by someone who's a traitor or whatever.
What did it call? Fruit? Was it fruit of a poison tree or some shit?
Yeah,
fruit from the poison tree.
Yeah. But the true them in, and the revenge scene where he just pours, I don't know what it was. It was a dark liquor. It was obviously flammable, and he just sets all the coffins on fire. And a woman wakes up screaming. He chops off her head with the scythe. And then there was just cool people. It was
probably lamp oil or something.
People just jumping out of their coffins 50, 60 feet on fire. Absolutely spectacular. Then he takes on Irish actor, you know him off the top of your head.
A mouthful of water, dude. Stephen Ray's character, and the absolutely awesome scene where he thinks because he's so fast he pops up behind him, but the swing that Louis takes at him, he makes it a 360. He uses the momentum of the first half of his swing to turn around, and he catches him like a foot at an angle and chops straight through him. I thought that was just fantastic. I was watching that and I thought to myself, that's an action scene. Yeah, when I was watching that scene, I was like, there's probably nobody more detrimental to the existence of vampires than Louis.
Yeah, like
his creation by Lestat is like a massive detriment to vampires. Like, that's probably the biggest, I know, coven or nest or whatever you want to call it, but that's
with the world's oldest vampire.
You know what I mean? The world's oldest known vampire.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I don't want people that are older than vampires coming at me and saying that we're not giving them the props, that they're older than 400 years, that our man's not the oldest vampire. We get it. There's a strong vampire community out there.
Yeah, we get you.
But I'm going to say y'all suck.
Oh, you bet. I was actually about to say it. I was thinking, no, it's a terrible joke, but I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you did it.
Yeah, no, I love that scene too. It's kind of like you take the only thing I care about. I'm going to take everything from you. It's
But that's remember like when he pours the brandy or whatever it was on the coffins. He walks up to a candelabra. And he just
candlestick, dude.
Yeah, when I had 4, I think that makes it a candelabra. Go figure. And he pushes it over, but he does it so nonchalant, like he does it the same.
Yeah.
With absolutely no gusto, he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like, and even if he didn't seem to go in with the idea that he was going to get out alive, because he wasn't like stealthy or anything like that. He was fast enough in the sense that he just got on with it, but he was just like, fuck it, I'm taking my shot. Yeah. There was something so cool about that, and that's pure action. I always love the fact that Anne Rice can look at the screenplay and go, right, this is beautiful. I think the dialogue is excellent. The dialogue's a 10. The dialogue is a 10.
100%.
But I love the fact that she would have thought that perhaps it was already in the books. We haven't read the books, we don't know, but that it needs action, it needs something for you to grab onto, and it had it. Even that, it didn't lack in that.
The saying that I like to refer to when I do a bit of writing or whatever is that internal conflict is interesting, but external conflict is exciting. And that's exactly what Anne Rice, I think, was thinking.
Yeah.
You have all this internal...
that's a good way of putting it.
You know what I mean? You have all this introspection with Louis, his little bit...
The whole film is his introspection, you know, because
like,
it's written... It starts at the end and works its way backwards.
I think, because it was Claudia nearly that kills Lestat more than Louis, and I know Louis has the body.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is finally Louis' outlet for his rage that he's held onto for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Like, and this is what it was, and this was the chance to, like, pretty much the last bit of purity in his life, even though she was far from pure, was Claudia, because she was a serial killer.
Yeah,
like, clearly, like, no,
she was
Lestat's daughter,
so wicked.
Louis.
She was so wicked.
I think she was more Lestat's daughter than Louis.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because her and
the tactics
her and Lestat were genocidal
Yeah.
together. They wiped out families.
Yeah. Family annihilators.
Yeah.
I actually nearly forgot that scene. Sorry to cut across. But remember, they're sitting with the family and they're like singing, and in the next scene is all the coffins being brought out.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten that scene. Like, I was like, "Fuck, that's brilliant."
Yeah, it was just fantastic.
But they devoured families together or something, was there?
Yeah,
something like that.
And Louis loved her. He couldn't forgive Lestat that, but I think again, all he could see was a child.
Yeah.
And that was just as simple as that. And the closest thing he could ever possibly have to a daughter.
Yeah, and he lost his daughter as well. So there's
he lost his daughter,
transference.
Yeah. And it's not like, for all his flaws, he was trying to make Louis happy. He did seem to really want.
Lestat, he did. He just wanted a companion.
Yeah.
He wanted to share in his fucking mayhem, the glee of the kill. He just wanted to create another Lestat, but in a weird sense, he never created another Lestat with Louis, but he did with Claudia.
Yeah.
And that was
when he was actually trying to just create and
he was trying to create like a companion for Louis.
He overachieved.
Yeah.
Like, he was too successful. What would a Lestat do if he was confronted with another Lestat?
Yeah. Do you know what my theory was a little bit was? Do you know the way she's so hungry? I know that's put down to a child's gluttonous, but like, she's a child she was like a pauper. She died of the plague, probably starving to death as well. But Louis was a man of privilege, never had a want, whose stomach was always full.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, it's kind of weird that when they died, Louis never seemed to really have much of an appetite. Like, he was eventually he gave into it, and he's like, I'm just going to hunt people. Yeah. I'm going to kill people. But she was always hungry. It's kind of like she's died of starvation. She's died of disease.
Well, it's like it
carried over. It's like a buffet table is always there
like
for her.
Stranger Things, where she 11 breaks into the diner, and the guy goes, "Look, listen, kid, you can have what you want," and all of a sudden she's just like burgers and fries. And
exactly. Like,
you know what I mean? It was she was offered bounty, and she took it. Because that's probably all. Yeah, it's a good point.
She was a starving child, and she was offered a buffet, and she's like, "I'm going to eat my fill for the first time in my life."
Yeah.
Whereas Louis was a man of privilege. He was offered a buffet, and he's like, "I've been offered buffets all my life. I'm fed up with buffets." Absolutely. And now this buffet is attached to anguish and it has a face. And eventually he gives into.
He knows loss.
Yeah,
he knows loss because he was Kirsten Dunst as Claudia wasn't a survivor. They caught her at the final second and turned her. But
and he fed
Louis
off was starvation.
And but Louis was a survivor.
Yeah,
he wanted for nothing.
And he's a plantation owner, he's a wealthy man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's an aristocrat, like.
And I loved. I mean,
I was 23, but times were different. I was already a man by then, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is amazing when you think back by then, like 17 or 18-year-olds, and they're like fucking owning land and everything, like, you know.
Yeah.
It must have been insane, like, you know what I mean, like, you know. Like, imagine being a 23-year-old man, and Jesus Christ, I'm totally against slave labor. Imagine being a 23-year-old man and owning all that shit. Like, it just must be a completely different mindset. Like, when I was 23, like,
it's completely alien. It's completely like in obviously you can't gloss over the absolute abhorrentness of slavery, or even a lot of the awful shit that went on back then. But just to look at it again without judgment, from like the perspective of fiction, to say this was an insane time for people.
Yeah, imagine
things moved faster.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine being like a 22-year-old or 23-year-old and owning this fucking massive fucking plantation. Like that must be just like fucking weird. Like, because that's what I'm saying, in modern times, imagine that'd be like being Mark Zuckerberg nowadays.
Yes.
Or some shit like that, where you own this,
Yeah.
like, because like a cotton plantation back then, you're talking millions of dollars. Back
Yeah.
in the 1700s or 1800s, like, it's like billions now, like, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just fucked up how fast time must have moved back then. Because, like, it must have been like literally, you're a child
Yeah.
for a couple of years. And then you're like, adolescence was pretty much manhood nearly
Yeah.
back then. And then by the time you're early 20s, it's
At
like
13 onwards, you're becoming a man.
Yeah,
you know what I
exactly.
mean?
It's like
Yeah.
their early 20s is like nearly our 40s nearly.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
You
You,
know,
needed
it's
to be.
crazy.
You needed your station in life at that
Yeah.
stage. Yeah.
You know, that's what I thought was like kind of fucked up when you kind of look back then and you see what it was like to be such a young dude. And that's what I liked that Brad Pitt talked about that. It's like, I was 23, but I was already a man. And like, he'd lived a full life. His wife had already died. His child had already died. It's like, literally, he was ready for death and he was 23. It's like he'd already been 50 or 60. Because like, he owns a plantation, he has this massive wealth, his family's already passed away. This is the kind of stuff that you think like a 50-year-old man. Like when you listen to a 50-year-old, what did you experience in life? Well, I own a massive plantation. I have all these people working under me or whatever, you know, the slave labor, whatever, back in the times. Like, oh, my wife passed away, my child passed away, and go, what age are you? I'm 23. You'd expect him to say, I'm 55.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like he lived
Life
his whole...
expectancy was shorter.
Yeah.
What was expected of you, and again, like, you know, we still have things in the world like arranged marriages and stuff like that. There was just like, especially in affluent society, there was what was expected of you at a certain age was just insane.
Mind-boggling.
It's insane to us now.
Yeah, especially
you know.
back in, you know, their culture as well in the south, because
Yeah.
as being Irish, you know, there's one thing we fucking hate, slave labor. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so it's such a
fucking
weird
hell,
mindset to try to get into, like, you know what I mean? Like, but like, I just love the way even Brad Pitt kind of alludes to, like, I could tell you about my life, but I'll tell you about my vampire. He lived an entire life by the time he was 23. Like, you know what I mean? And that's what he kind of alludes to. I lived this whole life already, but I'm going to tell you about my life after my life, the life after death. And I just thought that was kind of beautiful storytelling, and just a little minute little line that I was 23, but times were different. I was already a man at that stage. I was already a man by then. Because he's literally saying, I've already lived a life by the time I was 23. Let me tell you about my new life. You know what I mean? Before we go to the break, do you want to talk a little bit more about anything else, or we just leave it till after?
No, we'll talk about the break. There's a lot to talk about.
All right, cool. All right, folks. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm a host, Small John Tui.
All right, we'll see. Sorry, we got Carmack in the back, and this is Invasion of the Potty Snatchers, and we'll see you after the break with more Interview with the Vampire. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Welcome back from the break. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Small John Tui.
This is Invasion of Potty Snatchers. We've got Carmack in the back, and we're back with some more Interview with the Vampire. So, no, we left off when Louis extracted his revenge, and we talked a little bit about how he alluded to his life before becoming a vampire. But I want to kind of pick up, like, we all spoke about his relationship with Lestat and Claudia and stuff, and how both of them were kind of poisonous to him, to use it nowadays terms. They're toxic to him. Like, I want to talk a little bit more about his life after Paris, after Claudia, after Lestat, where he actually became, I think what do you call, refer to it as, after Lestat's death, we were like two orphans that had been let out into the night or some shit like that. Now he's a singular orphan, he's on his own, he's got no Claudia in his ear, he's got no Lestat in his ear, and this is the kind of first time where he lives his life kind of the way he wants, and that's to be very quiet in the shadows, can just be living amongst people, and like obviously feeding, what's he said to Christian Slater, I feed the people that cross my path, or some shit like that. Like, you know what I mean? So he's an opportunistic feeder. He's not a hunter. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's the way he always wanted to be. And I think when you take away Lestat and Claudia, that he becomes less predatorial, because he's only being predacious because of the company he keeps. And that's what I talked about earlier. Like, Lestat actually tried to make a new Lestat in Louis, but he actually inadvertently met a new Lestat in Claudia, who ended up being his demise.
Yeah.
And that's why Louis, until he gets free of Claudia, who I think is every bit as much detrimental to him as Lestat, even up more so, because I think Lestat had a more controlled psychopathy, for lack of a better term. Like he was like, he knew exactly what he wanted to kill, but because of Claudia's, she was turned as a child.
Because he did.
She was more.
He did have a plan. He'd move in somewhere. He'd feed from there. He wouldn't necessarily go straight back to that place.
Yeah,
you know, he had ways.
Because you can leave for 100
because
years.
he wanted to blend. Yeah, you could leave for 100 years. But like when it came to Claudia again, they were family annihilators.
Yeah.
It was like again, like you alluded to that time where they're singing with the family, and then it's a load of coffins coming out. They did not need to feed that much.
Yeah, exactly. Overkill.
Like, apparently, a person would get at least one person seems to get them over X period of time.
Yeah,
certainly over enough period of time that killing and obviously killing two people at the same time is completely wasteful.
Yeah.
It's
like eating two fucking ribeye steaks.
Yeah, exactly.
The second one's not going to taste delicious as the first one.
It's like eating two half ribeye steaks, ordering two. You know what I mean? Like, because probably, I doubt, like, they sanguinated. That's right. That's right. I doubt they sanguinated everyone they killed. Because they just
bled them dry.
Did they though? You know what I mean? They didn't need to. Eventually, it became the fun of the kill.
Yeah, we can only bleed them as far as death anyway. Because if you, what does Louis say? No, what does Lestat say to Claudia? It's like if you give in too much, that will kind of take you or some shit.
Yeah.
Because
you follow the victim.
Yeah, exactly.
You take them to the brink and you push
let
them
them
over
go.
the edge.
You
and
just let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's why. It's such a fucking beautifully written fucking movie.
But this is what I mean. Like, and even like. I know it's not the right word, and I apologize for not having the better one, but everything about this was kind of sexy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just the layout, it was so demure and everything.
Yeah.
It was so...
I just think, beautiful is nearly a better term.
Beautiful, it was.
Because, like, just the dialogue, the way it looked, the way it felt, even though it looked kind of dirty at the same time, which that period, of course, like, hygiene back then must have been atrocious. Like, the powder, like, that one thing Louis always reminded me of is a guy that wears a powdered wig. You know, that kind of way, you know, and the reason they wore powdered wigs is because they're often dying of syphilis, like, you know what I mean? And the powdered wigs were often scented and they used to cover the smell of the rot from the syphilis. And that's the kind of Louis he was the kind of personification in a lot of ways, because he was rotten, or sorry, not Louis, Lestat. Lestat was the guy that kind of reminded me of the powdered wig. I don't know if I said Louis a second ago, but he kind of reminded me of that. He was like the personification. He was dying constantly because he was a vampire. He was dead. And he had this real kind of upper class, this perfectionist kind of look, this blonde hair. It was all like not tied back, all like, you know what I mean? He just looked like the proper person of that time. But yeah, he was rotten underneath. He was slowly decaying and slowly dying, kind of like a syphilitic victim. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's what I kind of like.
And they're not immortal in the classic sense that what they're doing is constantly staving off death. Yeah. And they found a way to maintain a status quo. Yeah. It's not like, you know, they can be hurt and they can be killed, but it's all about staving off. And I mean, you have to understand. I thought it was just brilliant. I thought Christian Slater kind of had a minimalistic role, I guess you could say, in this. Yeah. He's quite simply a witness. Yeah. He's the witness. He asks a couple of questions. He gets pinned against the roof, and but he taken all of this in. I love when sometimes it was. I wouldn't go as far as levity, but he was just like this is the interview to end all interviews. Yeah, like this changes humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Our understanding of existence.
Yes, but he was a very cool. Well, he's Christian Slater, you know. He was well cast. If you want somebody who's kind of like
see you Slater.
Yeah, see you Slater. But he was so well cast. He was so kind of suitable to the role. He didn't get to unfortunately have the really killer lines or the killer scenes, really, because it's not about that. But just sometimes you kind of forgot that it was being narrated from a little room in 1994. And sometimes it sucks you back in and you kind of go, wow. And going back to those scenes of Slater, it made the film, because it's so expansive, it segmented the film for me. Yeah. And you remember, like, because there was like when they lived in New Orleans. Yeah. And it's when they crossed the sea to Paris, was it?
Christian Slater was pretty much a human cutscene.
Oh, he was. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, he was, but a very fluid one. Yeah. Because they were able to jump 30 years. At the end of a scene, they just jumped 30 years later. And it goes, because he could say something like, and it went on like that for some time. And that would be fine. That would be enough.
And then it just fades to black slowly. and then we went here, and
Yeah,
then
and then it was them like
stories.
I remember it was on. They're actually at a steam engine.
Yeah.
because it's obviously just the.
What did he say when sailboats gave way to steam engines?
Yeah.
I love that line.
Yeah, exactly.
Like such one little phrase you're talking about encompassing a great period of time.
Yeah,
and that's all you have to say. Sailboats gave way to steam engines.
but this is just
and right. She's a bit of a genius.
Oh
like,
no, she is. Her way with the actual written word.
Yeah, like I love clever storytelling like that. One line, and it could be encompassing 50 or 60 years.
Why get bogged down in it, or have a monologue about how much the world changed? Sometimes it's just this one little line, but it invokes so much.
If
thought
you're an
in
immortal,
you.
how would you remember certain periods of time? You won't remember. Oh, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
that was 20 years ago. You go. I remember when sailboats gave way to. I remember when sailboats gave way to steamboats, or sail ships gave way to steamboats. Like, if you just think about that part of time and go, okay, that could have been a period of 50 years. You know what I mean? And in that's how he'd remember it. You know what I mean? It's like, how long have you been like? Go. Well, I remember when the necropolis fell or something shit like that. He wouldn't say, I remember hundreds of years ago. Because
I remember when the dial-up modem gave away. That's all we got, like, you know.
Yeah. But I just think
I remember when CD collections became.
Yeah, I just think that's if you're an immortal, you wouldn't remember in years because you lose track of time. I think you'd remember.
It becomes relevant. You wouldn't know when your birthday was.
Yeah, but you'd remember big events.
Big events.
Like, I remember when they stopped using horses.
It could even be like
cars. You know that.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
that was it. Or even just what you barely noticed it because it happened so gradually. But then you're like
gradually to you
because you go back to Chicago for the first time.
Yeah,
and you kind of go. Last time I was here. Like this was all stalls,
horses and wagons,
horses,
and now look, and the cars going everywhere.
And that was it. And that was that. See, that's the one part of it that actually is a gift.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. Who wants to live forever, as Queen famously said. But,
I take immortality.
Witnessing that.
Yeah, I take
witnessing that. It would be just.
Could you imagine if you were immortal and you were turned back in the day and you lived from Roman times up to now?
Oh yeah.
Imagine your understanding of like existence and humanity.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people say you'd feel a great futility, a great apathy. Because you'd see the great circle of life and the great repetition of history and future.
The same mistakes being made.
Yeah, exactly. Over a course of time, just by different people in different places.
In different contexts.
Yeah, and I think that's...
through different mediums. I mean...
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of times in these kind of stories on vampires, the older they get, the more apathetic they get. Like an Alexander Skarsgård in True Blood. Like for a long period of time, it started out him and his companion, I can't remember her name. They're kind of just completely apathetic to human existence because they've seen it all, done it all. They've seen it all before, and that's why the older vampire oftentimes become more predacious because they see us as silly, human-looking apes that just keep making the same fucking mistakes in different places with different technologies under different names, and they just have different color skin, but they keep making the same mistakes throughout for infinitum, throughout the history of man, and eventually they become so apathetic that you just view them as food. And I think that's why I think like the older a vampire gets, the more disconnected they become with their former humanity, because they see us as bumbling idiots or whatever, because they've seen our mistakes throughout generations upon generations upon generations.
I got you,
and that's why you create this distance. The older vampire, like an Armand, who's 400 years old, and he has this complete disconnect, not just with humans, but with vampires. Because even though vampires are immortal in air quotes, he's probably seen generations of vampires go make similar mistakes, outing themselves at the wrong time, hunting at the wrong time, and he becomes apathetic to his own species, even as much as humans.
He didn't belong to a coven or whatever you want to call it, a nest.
But you know what I mean? And he allows Louis, we touched on it on the break, that he actually allows Louis to kill all of them just because he wants a companion that he feels is worthy of himself.
Yeah.
Because he sees Louis, I think what was it, Lestat says, or is it, no, Armand says, an immortal that holds on to his humanity or some shit like that. Yeah. What a beautiful thing that is or something. And like, I think he finds it to be interesting. He's probably looking at vampires as much as humans as this same cycle.
Yeah.
And he's just become like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but they were like, they had this play thing set up.
Yeah.
It was like they had a scheme just to feed. And if you're 400 years old already at this time, you grow weary of so much.
He's probably seen this like genius idea in air quotes again hundreds of times.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it probably always ends badly for this coven or whatever, because they were going to get outed eventually. And like, or they're going to turn on the wrong person, like what they did with Louis, and Louis exacted a fucking incredible revenge. And he was he's the one that frees Louis from the wall.
Pulls him out of the wall, and,
you know what I mean?
Like
the
coffin,
I just think,
but not in time to save Claudia.
Yeah, because like, I just think like the greater, like what I love about these kind of stories, like the older the vampires become, they become apathetic not just to humans, as we touched on, but also if you look at Armand, towards vampires as well, because they're fed up with that great cycle and they're just living to live, they're existing to exist. And I just think that creates this great like singularity or something to these really old vampires. Like look at Louis, he's existing amongst humanity, but also outside humanity. By the time he gives his interview with Christian Slater, and he even thought about in a heartbeat he could have killed Christian Slater. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because he even thought about killing him first, didn't he, in the alley or something? And he decided that he was interested enough not to kill.
Yeah.
Because he was watching him or something, wasn't it? Like, so I just think that kind of thing is like Armand, the way he picked up on Louis, it's someone that interested him. And he wanted to take him on in the same way that Louis wanted
something
to.
he hadn't seen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it was, essentially. It boils down to 400 years he was surrounded by vampires and they're all like, ooh and ah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Hissing in the night, showing their theatrics, grand displays of power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's something he didn't do, like, you know?
It was, oh God, it was such a good film, man. You know, like, and it's 27 years old and it just stands up.
Yeah.
You just watch it and go, yeah, this is a great film. Like, just the full context of it and the entire execution of it. And it's a hard film to look at from start to finish in one kind of thought. It's almost too big. Yeah. Which is why I thought, again, the genius of the screenplay was segmenting it through the eyes of Christian Slater. Yeah. But there's so many... I think it was before we really entered into...
Malloy is his name.
Malloy. It was before we entered into the real era of like True Blood and fucking Twilight and fucking... We had that vampire renaissance in the early 10s, you know.
Once again, a case of missing the point, isn't it? Like where they went
there was
over.
So much beautiful. There was so much beauty to this film that I wish they'd carried across. Yeah, like vampires being of a different age and speaking of a different age and having different I don't know. It all just got very corny. Yeah, it got so fucking corny. And that's one thing. This film, you could say, it almost feels hammy at times because it's so Victorian or high society. Yeah, and they speak so clearly and so well. And
but it holds on to that dankness.
But yeah, it somehow did. Look, like
there
was something putrid under it.
Yeah, like exactly. That is it. Like,
you know,
that's what reminded me of the syphilis.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a good analogy.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's just that's what
something putrid.
Like look at Louis when he comes back. Or sorry, Lestat when he comes back. Yeah, like he is like that is like it's kind of like Dorian Gray. Like we finally get to see what the fucking painting looks like.
Oh, I love that.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it kind of is though. Like we finally get to see the true Lestat. When you take away this beautiful exterior of Tom Cruise, whatever, this beautiful pruned man, this the epitome of high society, you take it away and we finally see what he really is underneath. And that's what I love about that part with Lestat, when he's rotten and he's disgusting and he's like a shadow of himself when he finds him. He's like afraid of like a little bit of artificial light and everything. But you finally get to see Lestat boil down to what he truly is underneath this fucking veneer he's painted on top of himself to show the world. And you finally see him as this like fucking rotted fucking mutant creature that all he wants to do is feed on anything and get his hands on. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like he's just a monster. And you take away that veneer and you get to see what he really is after Claudia betrays him. You get to see the monster beneath, like, you know what I mean?
You still wanted Louis back.
Yeah.
Have you come home to me? Like,
yeah. Yeah. Because, like, how long has that been? 400 or 500 years, maybe? No. No, be less, 200 or 300 years.
Yeah.
Because of America is only a couple of hundred years, 250 years old, isn't she?
Yeah, 1776.
Isn't she?
She's a beaut.
She's a fair old country. So
I'll take her.
She's a fair country.
I'll take it.
I'd say she's even a continent.
But I don't know. At the end of this film, you just sat down and went, like, that was kind of like the art of film. Yeah. As opposed to the fanfare. And there's a lot of it, and I love it. Yeah. So, so I'm not going to be like, as in every film has to have that kind of that gravitas and that kind of, expansive storytelling. I like.
But when you have Anne Rice, Neil Jordan,
but with this, you just kind of went. This was an important film, and we were talking about films that have aged real well. We were wondering if Quiet Place, for example, was going to, be looked back on as a watershed moment in horror, etc. We do not know this in the fullness of time, but I know now as this approaches, as this is closer to 30 than it is 20, that this film is an important film. Yeah, not just one that's really held up. I think it's important. I think it should be, maybe perhaps is shown in film schools, because in terms of dialogue, like, it's incredible.
Yeah, and the scope of the story.
Incredible, and somehow making it not get boring because they it wasn't like huge action scenes or and it wasn't repetitive, even though there was a lot of things that happened multiple times throughout with vampires feeding. But at the same time, you just thought, wow, it was even really well paced. It somehow is extremely well paced while being a slow burn. And that's hard, man. That's a couple of spinning plates.
That's a proper slow burn.
That's a lot of spinning plates. And it handles them all so well.
And it covers a time period of a couple of 100 years. Like, you know.
I remember when he kills,
because it starts before America's America. Because he mentions we're all Americans.
He kills
now.
him in front of a headstone, and I think the headstone was of somebody who died in 1715, and it was a fresh kind of looking headstone. So I remember it's probably like that could have been 10 years after that, or 20. You know what I mean? Like this was 1730, 1725.
So you're talking British occupied America.
Yeah, British occupied America. Tensions building. Civil war on the way, kind of America.
Yeah, because he lived in the South, so it would have been pre-Civil War because slave labour was still going on.
Slave labour was still going on, and I thought it was great. Again, you'd have scenes like read her thoughts, and again we already touched upon it, but you're kind of like, I'm a monster, but I know I'm a monster. Look at this woman here, like sitting in high society, like, having people literally kiss her ring, and she's a monster. She's just as much a monster, like
exactly.
She's just not old enough to have been able, or as physically strong and fast that she can do it on the scale that Lestat can. But if she wanted something, or if she would take it. And it made me think. I remember thinking in that scene that so feeding off animals is possible, but putrid feeding off people is the
creme de la creme.
But the creme de la creme, but also immoral. And then I was just like, monsters.
Feed off bad people.
Feed off feed off the monsters. Like feed off the people that no one's going to mourn.
Is that what you do as your vampire?
That's that's what I'm doing. Like I'm getting.
Are we writing a Dexter vampire show here?
Oh my god! I think we're writing a Dexter vampire
Carl,
show.
cut that shit.
A monster feeder. You know. But fucking that. But I think unfortunately Brad Pitt didn't get the gift of being able to read thoughts, so he ended up kind of just giving in and feeding on people across his path. Because I think if he did have that ability, he'd go to a dive bar. And literally pick out Johnny fucking, killed his wife, insurance money, got away with it. And that's the one he's taking home tonight.
It's kind of like he hates existing the way he is, but he cannot stop existing the way he is.
And after 200 years, it's either like walk out into the sun or accept it, and he decided to accept it. He decided the world is at least you'll never have happiness. But the world is interesting enough to stay around. And because he was saying, like, I got to see the sun for the first thing, we already touched upon it. But like the fact of the matter is, from a man that was born at like maybe the very end of the 1600s into the early 1700s, and here he is in the mid 1990s, and what he's seen is so fascinating that he at least wants, like, what comes next is enough to keep him around.
I think as well, it's that vanity of human existence. We'll make it last as long as we want, or as long as we can, not as long as we want, but
it's as long as we can.
You know what I mean. Like, and I think that's just the way it is. Like, when you become if you become immortal, you can say, I feed on humans, this, that, and the other. We'll go, well, how old are you? I'm about 400. You feed on a lot of humans then, weren't you? It's like, maybe I did. And because it's just the thing where you get locked in this cycle of existence. And that's like, it's like, consume, we eat food, drink water, live another day, we live, and that's all.
He's a working Joe in Anne Rice's world. You know what I mean? He's a guy that gets up and just gets through his day. But through the visionary that is Anne Rice. I read one book by her called Taltos. It was beautiful. She just has a way with words, man. It's and a great story.
She'll do well for herself.
This
young Rice one.
She'll be thanks to us, she's going to be a household name.
It's what we do here,
It's what we do. You're welcome.
We make stars. Is what
if we're not in the forward of our next book, I'll be disgusted.
I think they call us the Kingmakers.
I think that's what they call us, and always
on the street. I'm pretty sure. Producers and me. Kingmakers. But I was like, if you look over Interview the Vampire, it just shows you that you can tell a beautifully gothic tale without ever letting go of how filthy and nasty not only was life back then, but what experience would be like to be a predaceous creature like a vampire. That even though you want to convey or portray this kind of like beautiful romanticized version of the vampire, seductive, like you can catch under his trawl, all these things, but at the end of the day, it's a man-eater. And that's what I love about Interview with the Vampire. It captures all these things that, in a sense, that has glorified the subgenre of horror. And in the sense, it glorifies them on purpose, and then it shows you how nasty it really is.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Interview with the Vampire. Like, it allows itself to glorify all the things that have already been glorified throughout history in terms of the vampire lore and the vampire mythos. And then it shows you what a vampire really is: eating rats, eating poodles, eating an alligator.
Yeah,
It's like,
he strikes. He's both like, what an incredible existence and what a pitiable existence.
Yeah, it shows you what it can be.
And the juxtaposition
this
that comes
glorious agelessness, or this living in dark shadows, eating vermin.
eating vermin. Yeah, you know, like,
And Louis lived both ends of the spectrum. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
he did.
It's like a Lestat system. You can feed on rats, dogs, poodles, whatever you want. Because he's just like, that stage, it's just like he's actually humoured by him. Like,
Yeah,
you know
actually,
what I mean?
that was it.
Yeah.
He went from being frustrated to actually seeing it as funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you do you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he knows he's going to come around eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's probably seen this before. Like, the futility of trying to fight against your very nature of
He
your
might
existence.
well, that's the thing, because he's introduced to us, and he doesn't do the Brad Pitt Louis. He doesn't say my story begins 200 years ago. He didn't do that. He was what he was when we met him. We don't find out.
And we don't know how long he's been like
we
that.
don't know how long he's been like that.
Which Queen of the Damned might fill us in. That's why I might go back and watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought at the end of the film, I thought Tom Cruise's best line was like, he just pulls Christian Slater to the back of his own car and goes, "I assume I need no introduction."
Who'd seen Tom How to Drive?
I see. It's a good question. Do you see how, like, he just one hand, then one hand. He's just so comfortable.
And he's like still wearing the Victorian gear.
Yeah. He pulls out his sleeve.
It's like,
and he's going, "Oh,
he must.
I've been listening to
foul."
this whining for centuries."
Yeah.
That's Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise. He was fantastic in this movie.
A proper villain.
Oh my god, he was spectacular.
Yeah.
And he was like, what was that one, Pineapple Express or whatever? He played
Tropical Thunder.
Lee Grossman. He was fucking excellent as that. A complete comedy role. But just seeing him so far outside of what we expect from him, action hero. Yeah, because he was phenomenal.
Like in Collateral, like I touched on earlier, he's got such range, and we don't get to see it enough, which is a pity. You know what I mean?
Which is a pity. But then again, you know, I'm not going to shed too many tears for the career Tom Cruise has had.
No, I'm saying a pity for us as an audience, not for Tom Cruise.
Yeah, absolutely,
you know
absolutely,
what I mean?
100% agree.
He's got a whole made up religion there and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it. Come at me, Scientology. I said it. I'm feeling
pretty
strong today.
Yes, those guys are pretty chill about criticism.
No, hashtag whatever you believe in.
Yeah, hashtag whatever you believe. Hashtag you do you.
You do you. Yeah. That'll be what we take away from today. Yeah. There's worse things in the world than vampires.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, said it. So no, before we get the fuck out here, do you want to say anything else about Interview with the Vampire?
I loved it. I stood up to watching. If you haven't watched it in a long time, you could do an awful lot of worse than pop a bottle of wine, sit down. It's a movie. It's a cinematic experience.
Yeah, it is. It's a real, exactly that. It's a cinematic experience. Like, but it's something that we don't really get enough. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I only realised how hungry I was for it when it's like when you smell something and realise how hungry you actually are.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein be something to be kind of akin to it with Kenneth Branagh, Jesus Christ. Kenneth Branagh, he played Dr. Victor Frankenstein, Robert De Niro played Frankenstein's monster. That's what kind of something that kind of caught that romanticized version of the Victorian age, but at the same time caught this really nasty grittiness. And it's like the plague and everything. He's like a plague doctor, I think, as well in there or some shit.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but I think like movies like Interview with the Vampire and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Kenneth Branagh, I think they captured the perfect essence of the storytelling. And even though like Interview with the Vampire is not Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it captures this beautiful, like, what that story kind of should be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like this like guy that can exist in my high society and feed on him and they don't even realize it, you know, that kind of thing. Like,
I get you.
And I just love the way it captured the Victorian age, but also the more I watch it gives me more this sense of like you're seeing just an immortal serial killer really when you look at it, and like his MO, his way of operating amongst society, and his way of like ingratiating himself into different circles before he fucking wipes them out.
Yeah.
And it's just a very interesting take on like a serial killer story. It's kind of like you're looking at what if Jack the Ripper was a
absolutely,
vampire
yeah,
or something.
absolutely, yeah.
You know, that kind of way, and the way he ties with his kill and stuff. It's just so interesting, so many different levels.
Like a mouse playing with its prey,
or a cat playing with a mouse.
Yeah, your mouse. Yeah.
A mouse killing a cat. Imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Other story idea.
I just kind of want to meet that mouse.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just think, like, as you said, it's just like the way they told the story through time and the different shades it took through time as well. That is so interesting because it encapsulated not only a grand period of time, but encapsulated a great story from this embryonic vampire to becoming this like long fucking living immortal that's lived life, lived through existence and sees existence, and he doesn't even hold rage or grudges anymore. He just exists now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when he went back to Lestat, like he didn't feel any malice towards him anymore.
I don't. Yeah, Lestat moves away from him in the chair, and he's like, "I wish you no harm." Or
yeah, because he lived like 5 lifetimes. What's 200 years?
Yeah,
there's like 4 lifetimes since then. You know what I mean? Like, so like any kind, like if you hate someone from 5 years ago, you might see them again and you won't hold a grudge. But imagine if you hated someone 200 years ago,
exactly,
and you see them again, the grudge isn't even a memory.
It's an extreme example. Isn't it?
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I just love that thing. It just encapsulates so much, and it just gives you a real idea of the existence of an immortal, even though it's only 2 hours. And I know there's a TV series coming up, I think AMC or someone are doing it, and maybe that will do the story extra justice because you can really spread it out over long form storytelling, even though I doubt if they're going to do any better than this, because this
actually felt like somebody who had lived all those hundreds of years in 2 hours suddenly isn't a very long time to try and tell that story, and they did an excellent job.
It's a perfect example of how you can tell a story that's vastly sprawling in 2 hours. It's a perfect example of the theatrical experience.
Perfect example of pacing.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect example of pacing.
So before we get the fuck out here, is that all you got to say?
That's all I got to say.
Yeah, that's all I got to say. So, all right, folks, thank you for listening. I'm Vincent Green.
I'm Noel Dundee.
This is Invasion Potty Snatchers. We got Cara Mack in the back, and we will be back again tomorrow with The Mist. All I'm going to say, folks, is the ending of that movie is gut-wrenching. It's not good. It's not good.
Hard watch.
And so, folks, see you next time. I'm your host, whatever the fuck. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Peace out.